Think about that. So 500,000 more people on the voter rolls than actually could vote in Michigan. And by the way, quite a lively bunch. Isn't that right? When we talk about stealing an election, when we talk about basically subverting a constitutional republic, I won't use the word democracy because it's misused and the people who use it are very often dumb. So there are 5 ways that it happens. Let's go through how this can alter the course of American history, change an election, change people's minds, and not with valid information. There's nothing wrong with changing your mind when new information is made available. There is something wrong with changing people's minds deliberately through the pumping of misinformation all the time, which brings us to tier number 1. This is the first way that they steal a nation. Media malpractice. It'd be one thing to just complain about it, but it's another to actually have numbers. Okay, so you've seen this. You all know about the big tech censorship. But what does that include? That includes Donald Trump's ads being blocked. That includes Trump supporters overwhelmingly being suspended on social media versus Biden supporters, including yours truly. This channel, the biggest election stream of all time in 2020, suspended for the election stream in 2022. Demonetized so that you cannot see the biggest conservative channel that has existed. And it happens across all social media platforms. That's why Zuckerberg apologized for it. That's why Elon Musk has released some of the Twitter files. That's why we have filed so many suits as we have. You can also look at the manipulation specifically from Google. Dr. Robert Epstein's, his study was, I believe it was called the search engine manipulation effect. You can go and read his paper. He has some data there that is more detailed than you could read in a lifetime. And he explained on this show how Google can tilt a 50-50 race very, very quantifiably to 90-10.
We've shown in experiments that just by manipulating those search suggestions they're flashing at you, we can turn a 50-50 split among undecided voters into a 90-10 split with with no one having the slightest idea that has occurred.
Well,
so this is all just one tier, by the way. This is just one tier. The algorithm manipulations, the banning of ads, the promoting of other ads, the tilting of individual political races. Let's get to another very clear example. Under this same tier, the Hunter Biden laptop story, right? The one that was buried. The one that would have changed the last election, assuming that you believe everything was 100% legitimate. Just this story being buried, just this story being declared to the American public by 51 former intelligence officials as Russian disinformation, just this story being buried on social media so that people didn't have access to it. We know that 17% of Biden voters would have changed their votes had they known about the laptop. That's enough to change Georgia. That's enough to change Arizona. That's enough to change, I believe, Pennsylvania as well. We've gone through those numbers. Yes, Gerald.
It's basically, too, don't think of it like as bad pictures of Hunter Biden or something like that. It's the FBI investigation into Biden and his dealings with foreign entities. That was all said, hey, no, that's all just looped in with pictures of him doing coke and having mini M&Ms on his dong or something like that. No. That was FBI. He used mini M&Ms, of course. Those are not the peanut M&Ms.
Right.
It's definitely about Hunter Biden's connection to his father and their connection to overseas dealings.
Yes.
That would have changed it.
And by the way, we were integral in this because we were experiencing it in real time. The first time Hunter Biden's laptop was ever shown to the world was on this very show, and I didn't know that it was going to happen. Have you seen the pictures?
Report this guy.
Have you seen the pictures of him with the crack pipe?
You're darn right I have.
Oh, wow. Does he at least look like cool?
Unfortunately, I can't show them to you right now, but this is the hard drive they're on right there.
Gosh.
Oh, my word. I know you're thinking, hey, that wasn't enough zeal and that reaction. I couldn't see. I was looking at a little monitor. I thought, he had like a makeshift, like a mock-up laptop. I didn't realize that was the actual
one of 3
laptop.
or 4 apparently that were floating around.
You're darn right it is.
Look, this is the laptop. I've seen the M&M Minis right next to his car.
Darn right, right there.
It says minis.
I didn't know you could smoke drywall in the nude, but apparently that's what it seems like a fire hazard. So tier 1, all of that media malpractice. Please check the references. That's enough to change the election. Okay? Tier 2. You combine this with the media malpractice, weaponizing the justice system, right? And we have seen this many civil and criminal cases against Donald Trump with the express purpose of prohibiting him from running for office.
The former president of the United States, now a convicted felon,
having been found guilty of 34 felony charges by a jury.
Just moments ago, the special counsel's office announced the former president will face new charges.
Breaking news, a New York jury has found the Trump Organization guilty.
A federal grand jury has voted to indict former President Trump in the January 6th investigation.
We got to lock him up.
And we showed you, we of course did the Mug Club Undercover with the the spokesperson of the DOJ saying they're just stacking anything that they can. These are the kinds of, these have never been prosecuted before. It's because they don't want Donald Trump to be able to run for president. Again, the man who would win the election today, and when these cases started, when these suits started, they are trying to render ineligible even though they know it's bogus. You also have not just Donald Trump, but for example, the Biden administration raiding journalists. Remember James O'Keefe? They raided his house. Remember they said that Ashley Biden's diary was illegitimate as well. They raided his house. And then later in the dead of night, they said, by the way, it turns out it's an actual thing. They've been throwing Donald Trump's supporters in jail, right? Over 1,400 people from January 6th. 500 of them were jailed. I believe it was 1,400 were charged.
Yeah.
A lot of them did nothing more than trespass. Some of them didn't even trespass, by the way. Some of them were invited in. You have Navarro, you have Bannon, jailed for contempt of Congress. You have Manafort, who was jailed for things that happened years before Donald Trump's presidency. You've had threats of jail for many supporters, and so they've had to turn on Donald Trump. The message has been very, very clear that's been sent from the Democrat Party and this administration. If you work for Donald Trump or if you are associated with him, we will jail you. So you have the media malpractice, which also echoes, right? They echo the false narrative of Donald Trump being a felon. They echo the narrative of discrediting people like James O'Keefe, us as well. Malcolm Undercover, these people have no ethics. And at that same time, the world's most powerful intelligence agencies are silencing investigative journalists behind the scenes and anyone who supports Donald Trump. So you have media malpractice. That's number one. It's enough. The weaponizing of the DOJ. That's enough. That changes swing states. Let's get to tier number 3. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Changing election laws. So before we get to the votes, before we get to the ballot harvesting, before we get to potential direct fraud, changing the laws of how elections are conducted in this country in a way that is unprecedented. For example, Pennsylvania violated state constitution by changing their election laws. It, by the way, was permitted by Democrat judges. And to be clear, it was acknowledged that this was in violation of their state constitution. But then they said it's moot because the election was held anyway. Yep. So the misdeed is committed. Well, you can't stop it because we don't know if this could actually encourage fraud. We haven't experienced it yet. And then when you say this has happened, yeah, but it's a moot point now because the election's already been done. There's nothing you can do about it. You look at not only Pennsylvania's a very clear example, but nationwide. You had expanded mass mail-in voting. You had drop boxes. You have 14 states that do not require any voter ID at polls. 24 states, by the way, offer exceptions to their voter ID laws. Many of these states, you can vote with an ID that doesn't require any proof of citizenship when you get that ID, so you might as well not need voter ID. But you have 14 states, no voter ID whatsoever because something, racism. Then you have direct attempts to keep Donald Trump off the ballot. You had that in Colorado, Illinois, Maine. So we've gone through 3 tiers. You have media malpractice, you have the weaponizing of the DOJ, you have changing of election laws. Okay, now that
don't forget fighting every voter ID law that comes up to Congress. Right. Dems fighting to make sure that you have to do that. In other states that where you just have to check a box that says I'm a U.S. citizen. Right. And they count that as some kind of a guard against it.
Promise?
Yes.
By the way, Toolman, are we going in descending order or ascending? I was going 5, 4, 3, 2. Are we going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, okay.
We're on number 4.
No, you did it right.
All right. Good. Then I got it. Okay. We're on number 4.
Yeah.
I always forget if we're going in ascending or descending.
4. Ha!
Good news is you don't have to trust this dummy. Just go check the references. We make those available every time. So number 4, this tier, is now you're dealing with errors that are unresolvable and maybe might be a one-off, but if you have enough of these one-off malfunctions, it affects the election. Let me give you some examples right here. 2022, what happened in Maricopa County? Oh, voting machines malfunctioned on Election Day, where people had to wait for hours. I don't know if you know this. If you work for a living, you take a few hours off in the first half of the day. You go back in the second. Well, you're not able to maybe go back, especially if the voting precincts are all in one area, meaning politically red areas or blue areas. It never happens in blue areas. It happens in red areas.
Yeah.
Hey, that affects it. Michigan, 500,000 more people on the voter rolls than there are eligible voters. Those will be on the voter roll. So these are malfunctions. These are errors that cannot be corrected. Right? Let's think about that. So 500,000 more people on the voter rolls than actually could vote in Michigan. And by the way, quite a lively bunch. Isn't that right? Let's
Well
go to
said.
He voted.
A man speaks few words, but they mean something.
That's Jimmy Carter.
Yeah.
He's voting in an hour.
2024 in Virginia, right? They have now been officially, this happened Friday, I believe, evening. They're prohibited from removing 1,600 ineligible non-citizens from voter rolls.
We covered that story. It was the most benign thing ever. They had opportunities to cure it. They could show up same day and register to vote.
Right.
But they were like, no, let's just keep 1,600 people on here who cannot vote in this state, in this nation. What?
So
how do they justify that?
What do you mean? They don't need to justify.
They have to. We're a land. We should be a land where you have to justify how you do this. Otherwise, people start taking things into their own hands, and that's not a good idea.
You got too into that Nazi drinking coffee bit because I don't like what I'm seeing, Gerald.
9 voters.
So we're going through this, right? Just think of it as kind of a reverse pyramid. The one that affects more people, you have the media malpractice, you have the weaponizing of the DOJ, you have the changing of election laws, then you have the unresolvable malfunctions, and then this finally brings us to tier 5, where a lot of people spend their focus. It matters, but it's more difficult to prove, and it's not the only one that matters, and that's the outright voter fraud. Okay? So examples of this is where you see ballot harvesting, right? 28 states and D.C. either have no guidance on returning ballots, meaning anyone can return them, or anyone chosen by voter can return their ballot. So anyone can return the ballot. Anyone can grab the ballot, drop it off. For example, in Nevada, we've also uncovered some voter fraud there. You lived it with us. Then this was removed. Again, you have media malpractice. We investigated registered voters at fake addresses, places where the people didn't live and the people themselves may not even exist. And you can believe your lying eyes and ears. Susan Ray Emery, 1732 Yale Street, apartment 409, right about now. Well, hold on a second.
There's nothing there.
That one's even detailed. It's apartment 409. This is Susanna Maria Lopez, 1009 South 17th Street. Junior Choi, you can explain to us. So what is this exactly?
Okay, so I actually took multiple pictures and videos of this one because there was no 2175. So basically, the house numbers start from 2730 and end at 2834 on that street.
And if you don't remember, we did this across multiple states, and we actually reported the findings, right? Then the registrar, I believe, of Clark County, updated some addresses. For example, one of the addresses we went to, updated it and changed it. Oh, maybe we had it wrong. Maybe it hadn't been updated. But we went to the new address, and this person never lived there either. And by the way, they updated them in the middle of the night when they were not supposed to. They posted on their own website, the county, we update our voter rolls one day, I believe, per month. It is this day at this time. They did it on an entirely different day at an entirely different time for a new address that also was illegitimate. And here's the issue. We can't prove all of it. We went through, I don't remember how many it was, somewhere between 10 and 20, right? Actually had to fly people across the country. We asked the registrar, okay, what happens if we're telling you that this first address was not legitimate and even the update in the dead of night on the wrong day that you popped in there is not legitimate? What can be done? We can't prove all of it, but what can be done about this one illegitimate vote? Assume for a second that I'm not lying about all of this, okay? Let's just go with me. Assume that you take 20 minutes out of your day as an official working there to maintain election integrity. You go there and you notice that Gupana doesn't live there either, as I am telling you. What's the recourse there? How do we fix it, considering that the election has already been conducted?
I'll have to check into that, but I'm not aware of a law that would allow us to do what you're asking. I'm not aware of a law that would allow us to take that sort of action, but
thank you. That's exactly my issue, along with these thousands of other votes on the rolls. I appreciate your time. Dan, thank you. I hope that you go and visit that address. Appreciate it. And so there you go. When you get through all of it and you get to the worst case scenario, we have a country where nothing can be done about it. And then you are gaslit, where you are told this isn't happening. And if you think it's happening, or you think that we should have some kind of remedy, you must be an insurrectionist. So we've gone through this, right? You have tier number, well, we go through 1 through 5. We have media malpractice, okay? That's one right there. The weaponizing of the DOJ. Then we have the, I believe it was the changing of laws in violation of their state constitutions, changing of election laws, unfixable malfunctions, and then you have outright voter fraud. We've already experienced tiers 1 and 2 this election cycle. We've already experienced the media malpractice. We've already seen the algorithms at play throttling Donald Trump's ads or not allowing them outright while promoting Kamala Harris ads. We've already seen the censorship. We've already seen this channel get suspended. We've already seen other conservatives be silenced. And we've certainly seen the weaponizing of the DOJ. And by the way, we've experienced that too. Remember the Nashville Manifesto? Lawsuit threat after lawsuit threat after lawsuit threat. Turns out it's all 100% legitimate. They want to delegitimize the people who are fighting for truth, for freedom, for a constitutional republic. And then in the dead of night, they say, okay, turns out we were wrong about that. The steal that will take place now, if it happens, will be 3 through 5. That means they will change laws or they won't respect the laws. There will be problems that simply arise that cannot be fixed. And of course, yes, to some degree, there will be voter fraud. And here's the thing. We weren't allowed to discuss that in the past. No one in this country believes that there is zero voter fraud. It's just not a thing. If you ask people, there's no one in this country who believes, yeah, every single vote is legitimate. It just comes down to what degree you think it's taking place. And then it's very difficult to make that estimate because you can't prove anything. And the reason you can't prove anything, for example, you saw that last election. How many other elections would there have had to be voter fraud and someone be able to prove it for you to understand it? But the people in charge will never prove it and they'll never do anything about it. So you never know of voter fraud. You just know that it happens. Lie, cheat. 1 and 2, media malpractice, the weaponizing of the DOJ. That's lie. They're losing. Expect the cheat to be tiers 3 through 5. Let me know. What do you think is most likely? And that is why nothing will be happening in darkness. The election live stream of the century. Next Tuesday, we start at 6 p.m. Eastern. We go until this election, till it's called, till we know who the next president is. And we do need your help. We ask you to enroll at mugclubarmy.com. It's just a closed circuit mailing list where if you want to help out, be a volunteer with our investigative journalists. If you happen to be in a swing state or one of those cities, there are a lot of things that you can do. There are a lot of ways to contribute. We appreciate it. Hey, if you're still watching, you can comment below or click this video playing in a box. Shut up. Shut up. You can tune in live weekdays, 10 a.m. Eastern, because that's the full show. Which you can say, shut.
I didn't say anything.
I know you didn't say anything. I could feel it. Click like.